What happens when a country music superstar and beloved television personality completely loses his composure during a live morning show? That's exactly what viewers witnessed when Blake Shelton appeared on Today with Jenna and Friends. What was supposed to be a lighthearted promotional chat quickly turned into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history. The morning began like any other for the popular NBC show. Jenna Bush Hager was joined by her regular panel of celebrity friends, comedian Hassan Minhaj and lifestyle expert Carson Kressley, chatting and laughing as they prepared to welcome Blake Shelton. The plan was simple: talk about Blake's new album, his upcoming tour, and maybe share a few fun behind-the-scenes stories. When Blake walked onto the set, he was greeted warmly by Jenna, who exclaimed how great it was to have him back. He smiled with his signature Oklahoma charm, thanked her, and settled into his seat, ready for what should have been an easy interview. Carson jumped in first, eager to praise the new record. "The fans are absolutely loving it," he said. "What inspired this collection of songs?" Blake smiled and talked about the creative process, the studio sessions, and working with talented songwriters. Everything seemed fine at first until Hassan leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "Blake," he began, "there's been a lot of speculation lately about behind-the-scenes drama in your life. How do you handle all the gossip that seems to follow you?" The air in the studio changed instantly. Blake's smile faltered, his jaw tightened, and for the first time he looked uncomfortable. "Well, Hassan," he replied carefully, "that's just part of the business. People are going to say what they're going to say. I just focus on the music and the fans." Jenna, sensing the tension, quickly tried to shift gears. "Speaking of fans," she said brightly, "they're so excited about your tour. Can you tell us where you'll be heading?" But Hassan wasn't ready to move on. "Sure," he said, "but don't you think there's a responsibility that comes with fame? When your personal life becomes tabloid news, doesn't that affect the people around you?" Carson shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "Maybe we should talk about the tour dates," he interjected, trying to ease the mood. Blake's tone hardened. "I'm not really sure what you're getting at here," he said. "I came on the show to talk about music, not to have some philosophical debate about celebrity culture." The audience fell silent. Even the crew seemed to freeze, realizing this was no longer a casual interview. Jenna tried again to steer things back on track, but Hassan pressed once more. "Blake, when you're in a position of influence," he said, "don't you think transparency matters? Fans invest in your story, they deserve honesty." That was the breaking point. Blake's knuckles whitened as he gripped his chair, his voice dropping to a dangerously low tone. "Listen, Hassan," he said slowly. "I don't know what kind of interview you think this is, but I'm starting to feel like I'm being ambushed here." The word ambushed sent shockwaves through the studio. Jenna's eyes widened. Carson looked mortified, and the audience sat in stunned silence. Hassan tried to defend himself. "I'm not trying to ambush anyone." But it was too late. The atmosphere had soured completely. What had started as a cheerful morning show appearance had turned into a tense, unforgettable confrontation, one that would soon dominate headlines and leave viewers wondering what really set Blake Shelton off that day. "I'm asking legitimate questions that your fans deserve answers to," Hassan pressed, his tone calm but insistent. "You've built your brand on being authentic and down to earth. Shouldn't that mean being willing to address the elephant in the room?" Blake's face flushed a deep red as he leaned forward, his patience visibly wearing thin. "What elephant?" he snapped, his voice rising.
"What are you talking about, man?"
"I came here to promote my album, not to be psychoanalyzed by someone who thinks they know my life better than I do." Carson let out a nervous laugh, trying desperately to diffuse the tension. "Guys, maybe we should take a quick break and regroup. The energy's getting a little intense." But Blake wasn't having it. Turning sharply toward Hassan, his Oklahoma drawl thickened with agitation. "You want to talk about authenticity?" he challenged. "Then how about being authentic enough to tell me what this is really about instead of dancing around vague accusations?" Hassan straightened in his chair, clearly startled by Blake's directness but unwilling to back down. "I'm talking about the reports, Blake," he said carefully. "Stories about your behavior on set, the conflicts with production staff, the rumors about your attitude toward other artists. People are saying you're not the person you present yourself to be on television." The studio fell silent. Even the audience, which had been buzzing earlier, seemed to stop breathing. Blake's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then hardened into anger. Reports? He repeated in a dangerously quiet tone. From who? Anonymous sources? Tabloid journalists trying to make a name for themselves by tearing down someone else's reputation? Jenna's voice broke through the tension, higher pitched than usual. Blake, Hassan, maybe we should all take a step back here. This conversation has taken a turn none of us expected. But Blake was done with diplomacy. He stood abruptly, his chair rolling backward with a loud scrape. No, Jenna, I want to hear this, he said, his voice booming. I want to know exactly what this guy thinks he knows about me. About my character, about how I treat people, about who I am when the cameras aren't rolling. Carson raised his hands, his tone pleading. Blake, please. Let's just breathe for a second. This doesn't have to escalate any further. But it was already too late. Blake's temper had taken over. His voice grew louder, more defiant. You know what? I've been in this business for over 20 years. I've worked with hundreds of people, musicians, crew members, TV hosts, and I've always tried to treat everyone with respect and professionalism. But apparently that's not good enough for you. Hassan, realizing the situation was spiraling, tried to soften his tone. Blake, I'm not attacking your character. I'm asking about industry rumors, about whether public figures have a responsibility to address them when they affect perception. Blake let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Industry rumors? You mean gossip? The malicious garbage people spread when they want to tear someone down? And you think I should dignify that nonsense with a response? The camera zoomed in as the exchange intensified, capturing every glare and clenched jaw. The audience watched in stunned silence as one of daytime television's most awkward moments unfolded live. Jenna tried once more to intervene, her voice trembling slightly. Blake, we all respect you enormously. I think there's been a miscommunication about where this interview was supposed to go. Miscommunication? Blake shot back, his tone dripping with sarcasm. No, Jenna, I think the communication was perfectly clear. Your friend here decided to turn your show into a platform to ambush me with unverified rumors, and then act like he's doing some kind of public service by putting me on trial. Hassan's face paled as he realized how badly things had gone off the rails. That was never my intention, he said, shaking his head. I'm a comedian, not an investigative journalist. I just asked questions I thought your fans might want answered. My fans, Blake barked. My fans come to my concerts. They buy my albums. They follow my career because they connect with my music. They don't need you to be their spokesperson, and they sure as hell don't need you interrogating me on their behalf. The tension in the studio was unbearable. Blake stood, fists clenched, his face a mix of fury and frustration. Hassan sat frozen, clearly realizing he'd pushed one of country music's biggest stars too far. Carson looked like he was on the verge of panic, and Jenna, visibly shaken, was frantically trying to salvage what was left of her show. You know what the real problem is here? Blake said finally, his voice rising again. The real problem is that people like you think you have the right to tear down anyone who's achieved something. You hide behind the idea of asking important questions, but all you're really doing is feeding the same toxic culture that destroys careers and families. The words hung heavy in the air. No one dared to speak. For a brief, electrifying moment, daytime television had stopped being entertainment and had turned into something raw, real, and completely out of control. Hassan finally found his voice again, though it trembled as he spoke. Blake, I never intended to destroy anything, he said, his tone defensive. I was just trying to have a real conversation instead of the usual promotional fluff these shows are known for. Blake let out a harsh, humorless laugh. A real conversation? You call spreading gossip and innuendo a real conversation? His voice grew sharper, every word edged with anger. Let me tell you what a real conversation looks like, Hassan. It involves respect, honesty, and good faith. What you did here was set a trap. Carson stepped in again, his voice pleading. Guys, please, we're live on television. Can we just find some common ground here? This is getting really uncomfortable for everyone. Blake turned toward him, his frustration boiling over. Uncomfortable? You're damn right it's uncomfortable, Carson. It's uncomfortable when someone invites you into their home, so to speak, and then blindsides you with an agenda. Jenna, her media training kicking into high gear, tried to calm things down. Blake, I want you to know that was never our intention. We invited you here because we genuinely wanted to talk about your music and your tour. I think there might have been some crossed wires about the direction of the interview. But Blake wasn't having it. He pointed straight at Hassan, his voice now a near shout. Don't try to smooth this over, Jenna. Your friend here knew exactly what he was doing. He came prepared with rumors and accusations and waited until we were live to spring them on me. That's not crossed wires. That's an ambush, plain and simple. Hassan tried to explain, though his confidence was gone. Blake, I swear I was just trying to ask questions people are already discussing online and in the media. I thought it would make for a more interesting segment than just talking about tour dates and album sales. More interesting? Blake shot back, his voice rising again. More interesting for who? For you? For your career? Did you think you were going to make a name for yourself by taking down Blake Shelton on live TV? The studio audience sat frozen, their silence heavy and electric. A few people even raised their phones, instinctively recording the chaos. Everyone knew they were witnessing a moment that would go viral. Blake continued, his anger now laced with bitterness. You want to know what's really interesting, Hassan? What's interesting is how quickly people will throw away basic human decency just to create a viral moment. What's interesting is how little you care about the impact your words might have on someone's family, their career, their mental health. Carson was visibly shaking, glancing between Blake and the cameras as if searching for a way out of this nightmare. Blake, please, he said softly. Let's just find a way to move forward. Blake shook his head, his expression a mix of fury and genuine hurt. Move forward? There's no moving forward from this, Carson. This man just accused me on live television of being some kind of fraud. He suggested that everything I've worked for, everything I've built is a lie. Blake, I never said that, Hassan interjected quickly. I wasn't calling you a fraud. I was asking about rumors, not stating facts. Rumors that you chose to give a platform to, Blake snapped, cutting him off. Rumors you decided were worth asking about, on national television without any evidence, verification, or thought about the damage they could cause. Behind the scenes, chaos was erupting in the control room. Producers were frantically debating whether to cut to commercial, end the segment, or let the confrontation play out. But Blake wasn't done yet. You know what really gets me, Hassan? He said, his voice low but seething. I've spent my entire career being real with my fans. I've shared my struggles, my failures, my personal life, because I believe it matters to be honest. And here you are suggesting that it's all fake, that my authenticity is some kind of act. Jenna made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Blake, everyone here respects you, your authenticity, your music, your career. I think we can all agree this conversation went in a direction none of us expected. Blake looked at her, and for a brief moment his expression softened. Jenna, I have nothing but respect for you and your show, he said quietly. But I can't sit here and let someone attack my character and pretend it's just normal interview banter. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling heavily. For a second it seemed like he might finally calm down, but then his eyes locked back onto Hassan, who looked pale and defeated. Blake's expression hardened once more. You know what? I'm done with this, he said, his tone suddenly calm, eerily calm. I'm not going to sit here and be lectured about authenticity by someone who thought ambushing a guest on a morning show was acceptable. Blake, please, Hassan pleaded. Can we just talk about this like adults? I obviously misjudged the situation, and I'm sorry if I offended you. Blake's response was immediate, sharp, and final. If you offended me? Hassan, you didn't just offend me, you disrespected me. You disrespected my career, and you disrespected everyone in this industry who works hard to do things the right way. By treating success like it's suspicious, by acting like anyone who makes it must be hiding something. The words hit like a gavel, final, unflinching, and impossible to recover from. The studio was dead silent as Blake Shelton, visibly shaken but resolute, stood tall under the glaring studio lights, the atmosphere thick with shock and the undeniable sense that the morning show had just made television history for all the wrong reasons. Carson was practically hyperventilating, his eyes darting around the studio as if searching for an escape route. Blake, maybe we could take a quick break and then come back fresh with a different topic, he suggested, his voice trembling with desperation. But Blake shook his head, his decision already made. No, Carson, there's no starting fresh from this. When someone shows you who they really are, you believe them, and what I've seen here today is someone willing to sacrifice basic human decency for the sake of creating drama. Jenna, trying to maintain control of the live broadcast, was frantically gesturing off camera, likely seeking direction from the control room on how to manage the chaos. Blake, I understand you're upset, she said cautiously. And I want you to know we value our relationship with you and your team. Blake turned to her with an expression that mixed disappointment and pity. Jenna, I know this isn't directly your fault, but the fact that this was allowed to happen on your show, under your watch, says something about the kind of environment you're creating here. His words landed like a punch, and Jenna visibly recoiled, her professional composure cracking. Carson reached over and placed a supportive hand on her arm, though his own face was pale with disbelief at how completely the situation had spiraled out of control. With deliberate, steady movements, Blake began unclipping his microphone. I came here today in good faith expecting to talk about my music and my tours, he said, his tone edged with restrained fury. Instead, I was subjected to what can only be described as a character assassination attempt. Hazen tried one last time to defend himself, his voice barely above a whisper. Blake, I swear that was never my intention. I'm a comedian. I ask questions, I push boundaries. It's what I do. Blake paused, holding his microphone in hand as he looked directly at Hazen. And I'm a musician. I create art. I perform to bring joy into people's lives. The difference, Hazen, is that what I do doesn't involve tearing other people down. The studio fell into an eerie silence. The only sounds were the soft hum of the cameras and the distant traffic outside. Blake set the microphone down on the coffee table with a quiet click that somehow echoed through the tension-filled room. I've been in this business long enough to know when someone's trying to use me for their own agenda, Blake continued. I've seen people destroy careers, relationships, even lives for the sake of a good story or a viral moment. He stood, straightened his shirt, and looked around the studio one last time. What happened here today isn't entertainment. It isn't journalism. And it damn sure isn't the kind of honest conversation my fans deserve. Carson made a final plea, his voice trembling. Blake, please, can't we find a way to work this out? This has gotten so out of hand. But Blake's reply was firm, unshakable. Carson, the only way this could have been worked out is if it had never happened. When someone walks into an interview planning to attack your character, there's no fixing that. You either sit there and take it, or you stand up for yourself. Jenna's voice was soft and strained, her last attempt to salvage some dignity from the wreckage. Blake, I hope you know we've always had tremendous respect for you and your work. Blake looked at her for a long moment, his anger giving way to quiet disappointment. Jenna, I came here because I trusted you and your team to treat me with basic professional courtesy. That trust was broken today, and I don't see how it can be repaired. With that, Blake Shelton turned and walked toward the studio exit. The cameras followed him as he crossed the set, his posture straight and expression resolute. Just before reaching the door, he turned back to address the stunned hosts and silent audience. To anyone watching at home who supports my music and my career, I'll always be honest with you, but I won't let myself be used as a punching bag for someone else's entertainment. And with those final words, Blake Shelton walked off the set of Today with Jenna and Friends, leaving behind a room full of shocked faces and what would become one of the most talked about moments in daytime television history. The camera lingered on the empty chair where he had sat, the abandoned microphone resting on the table like a symbol of how quickly civility can collapse when respect and professionalism are cast aside. What do you think of Blake's reaction? Was he justified in walking off, or should he have stayed and tried to work things out? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more explosive stories from the world of entertainment.